That's so far. I got kicked off stage. So you guys just going live without me.
Oh,
Nice. Wait, I'm just gonna add this to LinkedIn. Give me 1 sec.
Yeah.
Make the people wait for a bit.
build up the suspense. Exactly. Do you run ads? Is there an ad before?
Yeah. There's an ad spot. That's what Daniel's here for. He's speaking right now.
Oh, okay.
It's actually sponsored by Flutterwave, guys.
Are you for real?
Yeah. You didn't know that? Oh shit!
I didn't know that.
That's amazing. We should actually do that. You take any other company's podcast and you just sponsor them.
Right.
Yeah, all the fintechs work together. That's the point, right? Like, we can have Flutterwave in here, a bit of Money Point.
Oh no, actually, it's like I'm not even talking about like fintechs, like other industries, right? Like let's say just like they do basically for in ads, right? But like every company now has a podcast, right? And they need money, so you just go, you put an ad there, and every time the guy does a podcast, he talks about the competition.
But like, are you dissing the competition, or are you like, hyped?
Well, anything is fair play. In my world, everything is fair play, right? As long as it's not low blow.
Nice, love that. Do you guys have podcasts?
Nah, yeah.
Okay.
Coming soon.
If you did have,
we started with video logs. So the idea is actually to do the vlogs we're doing to actually turn them into podcasts at some point. That's the idea behind the
Nice, that's good.
Yeah.
I'm just checking. Are we live on my LinkedIn? Give me one. Oh yeah, we're live. Nice. Okay, good. Yeah, I think that there's something there, like especially when because like video content, even this content, right? Like could probably sit as a podcast. I think a lot of folks do both, but like it can be one and the same. I could probably like put up all of these episodes that we've done, and they'd be pretty interesting podcasts as well. So there's definitely something there. Yeah, Tech Safari podcast coming soon.
We have one of our guys that actually launched a podcast for sales. So probably we might sponsor it to bring it to become a company thing.
Right.
Nice. Wait, started a podcast for what?
Sales, the representative, those kind of things. Talks to everybody, everything sales.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, good stuff. Okay, I had this like random question come to mind, and we'll do this before we kick off. What's a company that's like outside of fintech or outside of like startups that you really respect, that you think is like just a complete like weapon of a company, like a fantastic company?
In Africa or globally?
Globally.
That's too easy when you make it global. For me, it would be Apple, which is so cliche. But the reasons are very simple. They are the least controversial company. They just execute without making too much noise. And they're pretty excellent in everything they do. Like they come into retail, they do it better than everybody that's been doing retail. You know, they do software, they are the best at it. They do hardware, they're really, really good at it. And they do it without being like, you know, you don't hear Tim Cook getting into troubles with Elon Musk and stuff like that. You know, they just focus on execution. Yeah. So yeah, it's a cliche answer, but it's one company I really like. Another one I would say is Dyson. I don't know if you know Dyson, the
like vacuums.
Yeah, the vacuum cleaner company. Yes.
Yes.
Exactly. That is precision engineering. Their products are amazing. Like everything they make, all the blowers, the vacuum cleaners, you know, the toilet equipment. When you see it, you just know that there's something about this product. It's just really good. And you can't miss it. So yeah. I like Bang & Olufsen as well for electronics.
Which one?
Do you know Bang & Olufsen?
No.
I like Achille go now.
Segun is cutting only high brands name.
Yeah,
Like, yeah,
man.
actually, dude, I bought
Unfollow
a
your
small.
background real quick. Like, where are you?
Yeah, I bought this small Bang& Olufsen device, and one of my friend broke it, and I'm still pissed about it till like still today. That thing
Wow.
cost about $500, and they
Yeah.
broke it. I'm never inviting my friends back to my house again. Um, but yeah, on my side, I don't know what the name of the company is, but whoever does makes Caterpillar trucks, those Caterpillar construction, yeah, Lockhart, dude, those things are heavy machinery, and they work. They're just beasts. Like, how can you make something that big and robust that carries other big things? And like literally, they are building the world, right? Like everywhere you go, you have to see those massive engines doing work, like digging through the earth. So it's like, yeah, like, every time I see that, like, I would love to meet one of the people who works on these things, because this is heavy engineering, precision. It's like it's massive.
It's hard stuff.
Yeah, fire. That's good. And they're so dominant. Like, I don't think I've seen a tractor or like a heavy machinery brand that's not that, right? Like,
Exactly. It's like they don't have a competition. Or if they do, we don't know them.
We've never seen them.
Yeah, never. It's like literally, like, what if the aliens comes tomorrow and asks for, like, dude, that's the only option you have. Like, sorry.
Fire. Okay, cool. That was a good icebreaker question. It was interesting answers to that. We learned that Segun like lives the bougie life, and and also that Cat's a really good brand. I think for me, I've been learning a lot about this brand called WPP, which is advertising agency. I think they're based out of London, and they're just huge, and they buy like smaller agencies and just roll them up. And I was at this retreat that they had last week, and I was just like, this is crazy. Like, it's just a whole different world. So there's a question on my mind. I was like, what's a brand outside of tech that's like absolutely crushing it? Anyway, okay, we're here now. We have some really cool people tuned in. I feel like we're warmed up outside of tech. So I'm super pumped for this session. We're going to be talking about how to launch a fintech startup. There's a few reasons why we're talking about this today, and like why I think like fintech in general is super interesting, and then why we should be talking about how to launch a startup like this, because I think it is quite different to launching any other startup, especially across Africa. But before we start, I would love for everyone tuned in. I see that there's actually quite a few of you tuned in, which is great. I'd love for everyone to just punch in the comments like their name, where you're calling in from, and if you're building a startup, let us know. If you're building something or building anything really, or curious, let us know. Let us know what you're doing. Cool. And as folks come in, I think I might shout out a few people who have already commented. Carol here is pumped about the conference. I'm a Frenchie and was part of the entry-level fellowship. That's great. Entry-level is an ed tech that I started a while back. Very cool. Brennan's here from Cape Town, South Africa. Angie is here from Cape Town, South Africa. Awesome. I'm also in Cape Town. Great city. Someone is like to Segun, sounds like you're quoting the contents of your office. That's awesome. And her name's Joke. I'm sure that's not how you pronounce it as well. Diani, Kenya, Amity's there. Great. Lucky you. Dr. Chris Brooks from Minneapolis. Olamiji's here. And Angie's doing head of growth at Lula. Bilal from Monaco, which is cool. YC as well, your cohort maybe. And we're getting a bunch more in. So we'll let that trickle in, and we'll say hey to a few more of you. I'm going to introduce the session, and then I'm going to hand over to Segun and Achille to talk about like who they are and what they're doing and why. But why fintech and why in Africa? Why a fintech startup? So fintech is really like what I've learned over the last, I guess, like 5-6 months, especially writing about fintech, is it's the bedrock of everything. Without like the movement of money, we can't really do much. And we're still super early in the journey of fintech across Africa. But starting a fintech startup, as much as it's the most funded category, as much as it's the most hyped category, it's actually really hard. There's all these things you need to do just to be in the arena to play, and then it's ultra competitive. And so I wanted to chat with Segun and Achille, both founders who have been through YC and who have built fintech products, about what does it take to actually build one of these companies? What are all the things you need to think about? And how do you sort of go from 0 to 1 to launch your fintech startup? So I'm going to hand over. Segun, did you want to start with a quick intro on you and what you're building?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Caleb. So excited to be here this afternoon or evening or morning, depending on where you're dialing in from. My name is Segun Adeyemi. I'm the CEO of Anchor. I've been in the fintech space in Africa now for about 10 years. I previously started a payment company that's called Amplified Payments. I exited that business to a digital bank called Carbon in Nigeria. And I also worked as the first country manager for Jumo. Jumo is a late stage credit infrastructure company based out of Cape Town, operating in multiple African countries. And about, just over a year now, we've been building for a bit before then, but just over a year, we launched Anchor publicly in August of 2022. So I think the first thing is, why fintech and why, do I do what I do? Fintech, like Caleb said, is the most funded category in the tech space in Africa. But as of today, less than 5% of transactions are still digital. A lot of people in Africa, about 5 in every 10 person you see among the adults, they still do not have access to basic financial products. They've never gotten either access to credit, to an investment product, to basic, like they've never gotten a card, which for a lot of us on this call might not be our reality, but in the continent that we are in today, that is still the reality. So as much as on the one hand, it looks like everybody's building a fintech, the problem to be solved is still a lot. Credit penetration is still less than 5% in most countries. Digital payments penetration, like I said, is still just about 5%. Insurance, investment. So there's a lot to be built. And that's on the one side. And for me, that is super exciting because you see that the opportunity is massive and the impact is also real. But then if you wanted to build a fintech product today or a financial product today, it is still very, very difficult. And what we're building at Anchor essentially is a platform that allows you to launch your own financial product easily without having to go through all of the complexities yourself. And we'll get into all of the details of that. But I just wanted to give a very high level overview before we go into the conversation.
Nice. And we will get back into why you started Anchor and the problem you're solving in a sec. But Achille, you're up. Tell us a bit about you, how you got into fintech and why you're excited by it.
Okay. Hi, everyone. So my name is Achille. So pronounced Achille the French way. Because in Nigeria, they always call me Achille. So I got into fintech probably back in 2016 when we started a payment app as well in Nigeria called Oyape, right? So the goal back then is to allow people to make payment through your mobile phone without internet, right? So we came up with this hack where you can make payment through Bluetooth. So you show up anywhere, anybody that has the app and has Bluetooth on, we just pay them without internet. And then we added a bunch of stuff on top of it later on. So it was literally, now we have shower deck, you can order ahead and all those things. So we started there, ended up joining the Paystack team back in 2019. So I stayed at Paystack for about 3 years and a half, working in the space and gathering knowledge and understanding how the whole thing works, right? And that's when I realized, okay, there are a bunch of other tools because Paystack is a payment gateway, right? That's so much Paystack can do. Being able to already move the money was great. Now it's time to build on top of it. That's when it's like, okay, it's time to give businesses tools to make payment. So instead of, we are not just a B2B payment solution because a company is not just paying other company, right? They are paying a lot of other things. They are maybe paying individuals. We are paying people via employees. Employees are making payments. And as Segun rightfully said, card penetration is not that big, right? So people are still giving cash to their employees to go make payments and bring back change or whatever. Or you make a payment and you tell your boss, the boss will pay you back sometime or maybe never, right? So those are other things that are going into having a business that are not just moving money from one business to another. So that's why we start Bujeti, so that employees can be part of the spending of the business. They feel empowered. And as Segun mentioned, for cards, just imagine you come into a company. For example, you come to Bujeti nowadays. If we hire you, as soon as you come in, you get your Bujeti card, right? And imagine that's what every company does. And anytime anybody from the team wants to make a payment, they just go make the payment. We reconcile. If you want to pay another business, we do that. Everything, we can automate things, and that's what we are building, to be able to give people access to credit, as Segun mentioned, cards, automation and all. So it's not just fintech. It's That's why Uncle is there. Uncle handles moving the money and all the cool stuff that a company needs. Bujeti handles that.
Let's take it to the top, Achille. So Bujeti, tell us about like the main thing, like the first thing you built. I actually really like the story behind Bujeti. How it started, because we actually talked about it on text.
Yeah.
Tell us how it started, and then what you ended up building, and then now what you built on top of that. But tell it to us like we're five, right? Like in really basic terms.
Okay. So yeah, as you guys know, the black tax, right? Everybody has to pay the black tax at some point. It's just part of business, right? So the black tax. Okay, the black tax is whatever you send back home when you get out of your home country. It doesn't matter if you go to Nigeria, you still have to send money back because you're outside of the country, right? So everybody does that. The thing is, you really don't know how much you sent over the year, right? And the thing is, technically, the government, at least in France, will give you some tax break if you send up to 8,000 euro, right? So you have a tax break. If you don't know, you don't know, right? So you keep sending money, and you actually forgot, oh, actually, I can get a tax break on all this money you are sending back home. So the plan was, okay, let's build something that will automate your money that you send back home, track it, add a card to it. So even whoever is receiving the money has a bank card that they can use to spend the money, instead of always going to a store to collect money, which is dangerous because you can go, there's no money, or you can go, you get robbed, right? So that was the thing, to just do that for myself. And talking to people, trying to have them use it. Some of them are founders. Unfortunately, most of my friends are founders now, right? So when you talk to them, obviously, oh, that's something I want for my business. That's something I want for my business, right? So okay, you know what? Let's make it business wise now, and that's how we restarted. So we started, we stopped, and restarted again, and YC came in, and here we are.
Here we are. So okay, so just to recap, you created a budgeting tool. It was originally for diaspora people who had to send money back home so they could budget. And then it was like, actually, there's application here with businesses and with startups to manage their finances. Well, okay, and then you also said, unfortunately, most of your friends are founders. So that was my biggest takeaway from that.
Yes. Because that's a different kind of people.
Yeah. Awesome. So you built the budgeting tool, Bujeti. What did you build alongside that, and what did you build on top of that? Tell us a bit more about that feature.
Yeah. So now it's beside budgeting, to have hand-to-end expense management, right? From bank accounts to sub accounts to budget to approval workflow, so you can automate your whole approval workflow process. Imagine currently in Africa and probably in some part of Asia and LATAM, to get something done, you have to send multiple emails back and forth, and sometimes you even forget what was actually first initial email, right? So you don't know. Then somebody don't get paid, right? Because things got lost in translation. You come in, you log a payment, you have to get signed off by the MD, the GP, the head of finance, the CEO, a long and lengthy process, right? And we automated that. We make it so that when you sign up on Bujeti, you come in, you can already set up, okay, if there is a payment of this amount, it has to be approved by Segun and then by Caleb. Or if you are making a payment on X account, it has to be approved by X person and then by this person. Or all of them have to approve before the payment is made, right? You set up policies. You can come and say, okay, for every payment above 1 million, I need a receipt or I need a proof of payment first, right? Below that, it's fine. You can pay. For employees, you can make budgets to employees. Let's say employee of the month. You can give them a budget and let them spend, right? That's your budget. That's 50K. Do whatever you want to do with it, right? And for people, for logistics, one of my favorite use cases for logistics. Logistics have riders around the country. You need to pay for fuel. You need to pay for food. You give them card, they can pay. As soon as they make a payment, you see it on the dashboard. You know somebody has made a payment, right? So those are things that we built alongside it to make it more complete.
Cool. Awesome. So we'll get back to that, and like I think we'll get back to the feature set as well, right? And how you launch the different apps on top of, or like features on top of that. Segun, tell us a bit about like why Anchor exists, and I think in telling us why Anchor exists, I'd also love to know like what does it take to build a fintech startup? Like what are all the things you need to think about when you build a fintech startup? Do you just launch, or do you just like put a web page up? Do you just start accepting money? Like, tell us about how, like, the different things you need to think about as a fintech founder going in to build something.
Yeah. I'll start with the founding story for Anchor, right? So for me, I'd spoken a bit about my experience in the past. When we decided to build Anchor, I was actually trying to build a different thing. It was a simple savings product that I was experimenting with. And there were a couple of things that I needed. I had to think about, compliance and all of those things. I just felt really, I'm trying to build a simple savings product, and this is all I have to go through, even with my experience. And I'll give you an example of some of the things that you have to think about, which is, some of the things that we now then decided to solve. So the first thing is for you to take deposit from customers, there has to be, you have to be licensed to do that. So there has to be a bank, technically, somewhere in that mix. So that's the first thing. So if you want to do anything that has to do with like holding deposits, moving money around, there has to be the compliance bit and the licensing bit. So you have to think about the license. Now, having a license is not a complete process in itself, because you have to maintain the license, which is essentially compliance. So there's some things you have to do to make sure that, you're following the regulations around holding that type of license, which is basically like what makes up compliance. So compliance is an ongoing process because it feeds into everything. Because you want to offer savings, you have to think about how do you onboard those customers. So you have to think about KYC. If they're individual and if they're businesses, you have to think about KYB. You have to have a record, which is basically either a ledger or a core banking application where you store the record of all of these transactions as they're happening. So you can decide to either try to build that internally, or you outsource and get a vendor, a solution that you buy, which doesn't come cheap, by the way. Like it is pretty expensive, right? And on the back of that, for you to be able to move money, then you have to connect into like, a payment gateway or to NIBs or to other switching companies and all of that. And in some cases, depending on what you want to build on top of, and we're just still talking savings, depending on how far you want to go, you also need to connect sometimes even directly with a bank. Now, this was for a savings product that I was thinking about. So for me, I'm like, before we even build the actual savings feature, I have to think about all of those things. And I'm in a fortunate position because I've been exposed to, different aspects of fintech for even before coming with this experience. Now, imagine people who, this is the first time they're building a financial product and they have to like think about all of these things. So in the process of solving for some of this background infrastructure, the question that I kept asking myself is, these are not the things that actually help us differentiate. This is not the end product we're trying to build. This is basically fundamental infrastructure for you to even be able to play. And really, that is why we felt, okay, the real challenge here first is not even in the product innovation or the feature first, is about the fact that the infrastructure for companies, for example, a lot of the cool things that Achille was describing, for you to be able to even build those things and actually create a great user experience for customers, there has to be a fundamental infrastructure that makes it easy for you to focus on the core product, but a lot of these background things are taken care of. So that is really how we got to the position of saying, you know what, maybe that is even the first infrastructure that needs to exist, that we need to focus on and invest in building, so that we can then partner with people who have amazing ideas, create a platform that provides that flexibility for them to be able to take those ideas to market and not have to wait for 18 months or 2 years. Because in our case, even though we launched publicly in August, I tell people that the story of Anchor started even back from when I started my previous company, because a lot of the relationships and the experience that we leveraged on were from my days building a payment company. So you see a lot of companies that I was just talking to somebody in Ghana. They've been trying to build a digital bank for the last 5 years. And one of the things he said to me was, I wish there was a company like Anchor in Ghana. Like literally, we could not launch. We've been building for the last 5 years. We've been in the market. We've raised money twice, but we could not launch because there was no infrastructure for us to leverage on. So that's really where the real core need is, because we are like, there's only, different people have different ideas. One person cannot build everything that is going to increase financial inclusion, that is going to increase access to credit, access to, do a lot of the complex spend management things that a corporate needs to do, that would digitize cash for logistics companies. One company cannot build everything. So, but if you provide that infrastructure, different companies can build for different use cases and basically take that to market. So that's how we came about the idea to say, you know what, this is the part that we want to focus on, and we're going to provide all of this as infrastructure, as APIs to all the different companies to be able to go to market, and of course in a compliant way, but be able to go to market in a much faster way, as opposed to having to spend so much and wait for so long.
That's awesome. Okay, so let me try to summarize that, and then I want to ask you a couple of questions, Segun. So sounds like you wanted to launch a savings product, and you kind of looked at launching the savings product, and you realized there were a bunch of things you had to figure out. So you needed a license, you needed to be compliant, you needed to do KYC or KYB, which is know your customer or know your business. You needed to, what was the other one? Like have a general ledger?
Like a core banking architecture application that you basically use to manage all the customer information and account records and things like that. Yes.
Yeah. And then what else? Was that the 4 things you needed, or was what else?
No. You needed to have a lot of third-party connection to the payment switches, to different banks to be able to move money. If you want to add a card to the account, you need to have connection into like card issuing bin sponsors, and then there's an issuer processor as well that you need to be connected to for you to be able to like even enable the card to be able to spend. So all of those third-party connections are things that are outside your ecosystem. Like you still have to do them irrespective.
Yeah. So okay, so you needed all those things just to build the one product, and then you're like, actually, this is the problem. Let's solve this. So let's build like all those things that you can easily plug in so that other people can build fintechs.
Yes.
Because ultimately, if you're a company, you need to go and you need to go and like build these things from scratch, which just takes years or like a lot of time. Okay, that's I think that's like a really interesting sort of place to come to build a company. My question before we dive into leveraging other people's products is, why is it so hard? Like why is it so regulated, and why are there so many things you need to do just to like accept payments, to like move money? Like why are all these steps in place? And that, Achille, you can also answer either of you.
I'll just jump in and I'll let Achille as well. The first thing I just wanted to emphasize is that there's a responsibility that comes with handling other people's money. And I think sometimes people take that for granted. It's not supposed to be this difficult, but it's also not child's play. So you also have to be ready for the responsibility that you're willing to take to say, I'm going to provide a service that deals with other people's money, because money is a key part of people's lives. So you have to be responsible, and there are bad actors. So it's in the interests of the government to protect its people and to protect the populace. And that is why the laws are there. So regulation is not necessarily a bad thing, because there's a reason for it, and there's a responsibility that comes with holding other people's money. So there's that first part. There's also the second part of the fact that finance is a precision game. There's a lot of things you have to get right. Imagine you go to your bank and they tell you, oh, sorry, we lost track of how much your balance is. There are not a lot of chances, you can't make such mistakes. So a lot of things have to be done in such a way that it has been proven and tested over time to be sure that it works and is accurate and it works as it should when it should. So when you look at it from that perspective, it means that the infrastructure cannot be basic. It has to be comprehensive, it has to be detailed, and it has to be deep, and there has to be guidelines. Otherwise, it becomes the wild, wild west. So yes, it is hard. There are things that we can innovate to make it easier and smoother. There are things that are just pure inefficiencies. But there are also valid reasons why it is hard. And I'll let actually speak to some of the specifics, but I just wanted to put that in context.
Well, as you mentioned, you already Segun already talked about regulation, compliance, and obviously responsibility for of other people's money. Because I know for a fact customers might find you somewhere and ask for your money if you lose it, right? Because that's the bread they needed to survive. So obviously, the government, the banks, and then comes to the banks. Bureaucracy sometimes also can kill you, right? Imagine we have to wait 1 year before we are able to build Bujeti. Because like, let's say it takes Segun a year and a half to build Encore. So if we have to do the same thing, we have to take 1 year and a half to build Encore V2 and then start building Bujeti. That will take 4 years and I will be too old at that time, right? People need Bujeti now, not in 3 years, right? So having someone like Encore taking care of it, as you mentioned, in the background, so we can just handle innovation. And then when you go back to banks, it's like a year back and forth. I came to Lagos multiple times, went to banks. Now, this, that, we need to talk to XYZ. And that's just for transfer. Now imagine we have to do the same thing for card, right? So I have to talk to different card provider, issuer, acquire, and then linking. And you need to prove, who are you? I don't know you. So how come you want to start a fintech? I don't know you. Who are you? How can I trust you? As Segun mentioned, bad actors. Like we come in, we open a bank, we take your money, we move, right? So all those things. Maybe I actually think at the end of the day, maybe the banks took time because they wanted to do due diligence to make sure we are not just some random guy coming to do bad things, right? So all those things comes to play, and it's unfortunate, but at the same time, luckily those things are there to make sure at least we don't do bad things, we don't lose money, we don't put the country and people in jeopardy.
That's awesome. Cool. So it sounds like the reason we have all that regulation, all that compliance is because, it needs to be regulated. Governments and banks need to protect people's money. And there's like a different level of responsibility that comes with people's, while handling people's money, right? If you're their bank, that's their livelihood. Whereas like if you're an e-commerce, it's a product, it's like a singular item, right? So there's just a different level. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, actually, I want to talk about like how you're using Anchor right now, and how you're working with Anchor, because there's features that you've launched that are like powered by Anchor. So tell us a bit about that, and then I want you to kind of extend that to like, is it, I think I found that when I started learning about fintech, I was pretty surprised by how many of these fintech companies actually just use each other, right? If you use like Cellulent for payments, they're probably also leveraging Flutterwave, and like vice versa. Or Paystack might be using, I don't know, like Stitch. Like a lot of these payment companies and even like fintech companies actually like really leverage each other. So is it normal to have like to be working with other fintechs to launch your own fintech at Bujeti? And then I guess within that, like why might that be helpful? That was a lot of things. So let me summarize it. How are you working? Is it normal to use different apps and like different like payment or fintechs to launch your own fintech? And like, how can other people sort of leverage those partnerships?
Okay. So actually, I will liken that to having multiple messaging app on your phone. It's different experiences, right? Different purposes. And that's the same thing for fintech, because as Segun was mentioning earlier, there's so many things that you have to do to make it work, right? And I saw Brennan is on the call, for example. Brennan is in charge of fraud and risk access management at Paystack, right? Somebody has to do that. Otherwise, somebody might steal some money, right? We have to vet that. there is a fintech that's probably in charge of doing that. So you don't need to build it again. You just go, you work with them. There's someone that knows how to move money efficiently to Kenya, better than somebody else. So why do you want to redo it? Just use them, right? And so everybody helps each other out. If you ever do that in Kenya and you can do that effectively in Nigeria, then we do the same. So everybody in Kenya and Nigeria has access to both currencies, right? So again, strength in numbers, right? Strength is number always. We cannot look at it as, oh, I will do it all. Again, we tried for a year. I was talking to banks so many times, like as soon as Uncle was ready, I was like, let's just go. It took us like 2 weeks because we were so excited when we said, like, we just wanted to integrate, right? Like every day, it's like, Segun, yeah, this and that and that. In 2 weeks, we were done because it took us so many time to get what we wanted that when we saw like a small light, like, okay, this is what they like to follow. And that's where we are now. And Encore powers most of our banking, everything money movement, holding deposits, and everything. So I don't have to worry about the money. I know the money is with Segun. Segun can then go say the money is with some banks, right? So that way we kind of share the responsibility, we share the stress, right? So I just know, okay, as long as we put money on Encore, Segun will handle it. Let me focus on other things. And that's the same way for every fintech. It's just sharing the load because it's a continent of 1.2 billion people. And we need to move money for 1.2 billion people. One single person cannot do that. It's not possible. Even Apple cannot.
Yeah. So just to add a quick point to that, the key thing is the problem you're trying to solve for the customer, right? If you start from there, that's really what drives a lot of the collaboration. It's globally. Fintech financial services is a partnership ecosystem. Even the big banks cannot function without talking to each other. That's why there's global networks like Swift, because it all works as an interoperable system. So seeing fintechs collaborate with each other, especially from an infrastructure and the front end perspective, is something that I'm glad that it happens in Africa, but it's inevitable because different people, like Achille said, have different strengths. And at the end of the day, it's about what do you need to do to give the customer the best experience. And what is under the hood is very different from what the customer see. But if you're thinking about the customer as the main focus, then you can just walk back from that answer and decide how you want to design the back end. And so if you look at the hood of most fintech companies, there's a lot of, even though people see it as competition, yes, you partner with somebody, but you know that this person is also competing with me. And that's just the reality of how fintech is. That's how it's been. That's how it will continue to be for the foreseeable future. There's only so much you can build. So I just wanted to emphasize that.
That's awesome. So, okay, so it seems like it is actually really normal to work with other fintechs. Like a lot of fintechs collaborate, and it's really like, how do you build the best experience for the customer? And let's work backwards from there. I'm curious, like, what other players do you need to work with when you launch a fintech? Segun, you did say something about the banks. Like, what are the different, if I'm here launching a fintech, like, who are the people I need to think about working with as I go and do that? That's an open question for both of you.
Yeah. I mean, the way we're thinking about it is that, Anchor over the next few years, hopefully you won't need too many other partners because we're building fundamental infrastructure in an horizontal level where we can touch most of the areas. But even at that, we are also taking strategic positions to understand that we can't build everything. So for example, today, we were having a conversation about a company that focuses on credit decisioning that could be embedded into our own credit infrastructure for companies that want to build their own credit products on top of that infrastructure. But not to digress, right? There are a few fundamental things. You need a KYC provider. Today, that's not our core. So you need there's companies like Smile Identity, Doja, Prembly. There's a lot of them for you to do KYC, KYB. We have taken a decision to work with some of them to do some of the KYC so that our customers don't have to go to each of those ones. But that gives you an idea of the conversation we're just having. So that's just one example, right? In terms of what you still need. Again, it's very product specific. So the product you're trying to launch would determine what other things you need to plug into. But we've talked about the license. We've talked about the KYC. If you want to be able to move money yourself from the switch, using the Nigerian example, you need to be connected to NIBS. NIBS is the Nigerian Interbank Settlement System. It's what makes it possible for one bank to move money to another. And even not just the banks, but even the entire financial system. So mobile money players, wallets, the ability to move money instantly between each other, that system is powered by NIBS and a few other private switches as well. So you need to connect to those switches for you to be able to do that. If you want to issue card, you're going to need a BIN sponsor. A BIN sponsor is the person that, when you go to the card scheme, which is either Visa, MasterCard, or Verve, or which other provider in the specific countries, the BIN sponsor is really the one that is like the issuer, the owner of that card that can be traced back to that. This is the bank where this card is originating from. So a bank needs to be able to say, for all of these cards, we are the ones that are responsible, because it has to be traced back to a bank. So that is another integration that needs to happen. Just to give a few examples. So again, depending on the product, if you're doing like an investment product, you need a treasury management system to plug into, which can be a totally different entity entirely that will provide APIs for you to do all of the treasury management. Or in some cases, you're still doing it manually, so you need to partner with an SEC licensed entity.
Can you explain? Sorry, what's treasury and why do you need a license for that? Just for people who don't know what that means.
So if you're offering an investment product, right, somebody needs to invest that product to give the yields that you're giving back to your customers. So the interest income needs to be traded. Like, there's expertise for that. And you can decide to bring that expertise internally, which is a whole different thing. I mean, there are people that they build entire businesses and careers on top of that. So there's expertise that is required to do that. So for most people who are trying to build a fintech product, you probably don't have that expertise from the get-go. Maybe over time you can build it, but it takes time. But you want to launch that product today. So you definitely need a treasury management expertise, which you can also partner with a company for you to be able to do that. So for us, we are trying to build completeness, whereby for some of these things, we'll build a capability internally. For some of these things, we'll partner with another provider, so that if you come to us as a company, you don't have to then go and start talking to each of all these providers one by one. Even though in some cases, we might still work with some of those companies where it makes sense to do that. So again, it comes back to the collaboration conversation. It's fintech is a collaboration game. It's not it's not just a one-man thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's been a really big insight for me. So I think it's cool we're sharing that. Achille, did you want to add anything to that on the different things you need to think about as you, like the different partners you need to have as you build and launch a fintech?
Well, thankfully, I don't have to worry about them no more. That's Segun's job. Segun, now technically, Uncle works for Bujeti, right? But yeah, you have so many things to. For example, in our case, right? In our case, it's a all-in-one expense management platform, right? Which means cash flow, treasury, cards, a workflow, and all of that. And each one of them comes with different ways of doing it, different regulation, different needs. Even for the customer, it means different things, right? And we have to think about that. If on top of that, we have to worry about how the money will move, that's another problem, right? So every single thing, as Segun mentioned, like for treasury, like for example, I don't know anything about investing and making people's money make money, right? Even if we offer the system that today, that's another startup that or another company that will handle it, right? Thankfully, YC has a lot of those, and some of them are Nigerian. So I will just say, okay, guy, I want to offer this to my customers. How can we make it happen? Just handle it, right? And we as like 2 days after the customer has the service, but for everybody is happy. So that's why like that collaboration things come handy, because you really cannot move the ball alone. It's too big.
Yeah, awesome. Guys, thanks. We're gonna throw it to the audience. I think we've covered a lot of ground, and I think our viewers have a lot of actually very insightful comments here, but also some questions. So if you have any questions, just pop them in the chat and we'll start to answer some of them. For some reason, I can't see the name of this user, but one of the questions here is, apart from transaction costs, okay, that's a confusing question. Apart from transaction costs, competition between fintech firms, what other competitive advantages exist on this? Exist within the ecosystem of fintechs that sets a fintech apart from the other, perform better and grow? Bit of a confusing one, but I'm gonna take that as yeah, cool. I guess it's like, what does help your fintech, like what helps set your fintech apart from others and like perform better to grow? I think that's what I would understand the question to be.
Oh, that sounds like the classical investors question. What makes you different?
What makes you different? Yeah.
What makes you different?
Actually, I thought you wanted to answer the question by reading it
Oh,
out.
no. That's for you.
I think you nominated yourself, for sure.
every hard question are for Segun.
You know, the interesting thing is people are always asking what makes, like, there's a lot of fintech, so how are they different? At the end of the day, it's really about the problem you're solving for the customer. And that's why it looks like everybody has customers, but yet there's a lot of fintechs. Because at the end of the day, we as entrepreneurs, we're not thinking first from a competition perspective. We're thinking first from a problem perspective. Well, I hope so. I hope that's the way everyone else is thinking, but I believe so, right? So if you're thinking from the customer's problem and you validated that there's a problem, how you get there? So there's a lot of overlap. A lot of people look alike, but when you get to the root of the problem that they're solving, there's a lot of intricacies and unique problems to be solved in fintech that different people are solving it in different ways. And until you are able to really understand what the customer's problem is, you might not appreciate the value proposition of a particular fintech. So at the end of the day, because they are irrespective of what you call fintech, financial product, there are a few things that are fundamental. Everybody is doing a few things: store money, move money, save money, lend money. But the number of permutations of how that can be manifested run into thousands. So you can't look at it from just the perspective of, oh, everybody's a payments company, everybody's a credit company. The scenarios are different, the use cases are different, the segments are different, the problems are different, the type of businesses are different, the configuration of, the money flows are different. So until you really unpack that, it's hard to really understand the value proposition. And that's something that I try to tell people when they're like, oh, everybody seems to be building the same thing. I'm like, that's what you think, but when you really understand the nuances of the problem that this company is solving, then you begin to have an appreciation for the competitive advantage. And it's our work as ecosystem participants or as builders, as entrepreneurs, to actually educate the market. Thankfully for now, most times it's the investors you have to explain it to, because you're the one. And then, but if you do a good job, your customers should know what makes you different, because that's the reason they are choosing you in the first place.
Yeah,
exactly. And just to add to that, I will probably give another analogy that I usually give the team is, there's so many ways you can get to 5, right? Somebody can say it's 1 + 4, 2 + 3, 0 + 5. The thing is, which one you prefer? Which one is faster? It's you to decide, right? Different UX, different ways, different cost optimization. Some companies might cost less than other, right? Some companies might have, one of the key things is some company might have better customer support than other, right? And user will like you just because whenever there's a problem, somebody is there to fix it or help them go through it, right? So that, and the pie is big. I was literally checking Sterling data, some Sterling data the other day, and they have about 3.3 million customers. There's 200 million Nigerian. That's 3 on 200, right? How can you solve it? So what makes two banks different? They just stop money, right? But they are different. There's so many of them, and some people probably on the call have 2, 3 different banks. What makes them different? Because they are just storing money. That's it. But there's something fundamental. You like one better than the other for S different reason. Somebody might have better UX, somebody might have a better rate. Some of them might have the only card that works internationally, right? But all of them are banks. So we can call them banks. You can call all of us as fintech or payments company. That's like people do all the time. Like, yeah, but when you experience this, you will get it. When you experience us, you will get it. And that's the thing. And using companies like Encore and other people, like when you experience it, you just know, okay, this is what I was waiting for. This is what I needed, and you just go.
It seems like there's like a lot of, I like that analogy of like, how do you get to 5? It can be 0 plus 5, 1 plus 4. My maths, wow. Like a lot of different ways to get to 5, basically. So, and I like that. I think there's a lot of ways to spin fintech. Like you can start in lending and then become a bank, or you can start in payments then become a lender. There's so many different ways to spin it. And I would also add that like it depends on the vertical too, right? Like fintech isn't always B2C. In fact, I think the biggest opportunity for fintech is almost B2B, right? Like it's to actually more money moves between businesses. And so I'd be thinking, what are the different verticals? Why is it hard to bank them or to support them like through the movement of money? And how do you build solutions to those problems? I think there's so many configurations. So I really like that answer. Let's move on. We do have quite a few questions, so we're gonna have to sharpen up the answers to get through a couple more. I do like this question. It's from Abdu or Ken, who's asking, how do you make money if you have to partner with so many entities? You can ask.
Let me take that. How do you make money? It depends on your business model. For example, for Bujeti, transaction fees or transaction volumes doesn't really make us more money. We offer a software as a service, right? So you pay for the subscription. So we make money based on subscription. Obviously, if when Encore gives me better pricing on transaction costs, that means better pricing for the customer, because technically we are not charging them on the transaction. So whatever it costs Encore, it's whatever it's costing our customer. They just pay the SaaS fee. So different model, different way of making revenue.
Nice. Segun, do you want to add?
No, I think Achille captured it very well. For us, it's a bit different. It's not SaaS, so we don't charge Achille and co monthly fees. We monetize the transaction. So it really depends on your business model. There's so many ways to go about it as well. There are a couple of revenue models for fintechs. There's interest income if you have deposits sitting with you. There's transactional income if you're processing transactions and money movement. There's interchange income on card, which is very small in our ecosystem, but it's a big deal, say in the US, for example. There's, of course, interest income also beyond just on the float, also on credit. So if you give out credit, obviously you make. So it really depends on your business model, but just providing some broader context that might be helpful.
Actually, how can we make sure that interchange rates goes up in Africa? Because it's actually a problem. We have cards, so let's get interchange high.
A good thing. Wait, like, is in you would charge that, or like who charges it?
Oh no, the network. Like for example, from Visa or Mastercard, right? So it's literally like it's me asking, how can we corner Visa and Mastercard to give us more money?
Yeah. But it's also capped, right? So in a lot of African countries, because we're trying to drive adoption of digital payments, the rate is actually capped to encourage people to use cards more. So the money, the full pie is actually like small, just because we're trying to encourage adoption. So there's that part as well. Unlike in the US, where the purchasing power is higher, people get digital payments, so you can charge them a bit more without them being as price sensitive as we are in Africa. So yeah, there's a few reasons for that.
Nice. Hopefully, merchants will get it and will just drive adoption.
Yep.
Yeah. Speaking of adoption, one of the questions here is, how do you scale up your products and services? And I think that's a good question. Like when you're a fintech, right, you have all this compliance, all this regulation to think about. what does it take to really scale up what you're doing? And I guess that can include go to market, and then it can also include like being compliant and doing it in a way that's like, yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, I think scaling is, it depends. Are you scaling, for example, inside the same location or outside, right? Different ballgame. If let's say you're in Nigeria, you are scaling operation is just for you to address more customer, getting more market share, right? Adding more features to the products and all, and then going outside of of your primary location, as you mentioned, compliance, because it's a different country, different laws, different regulation. You have to handle that. You have to get people, and because the product is already probably ready, right? So it's out. You do your scale operation. So you're scaling the product, you're scaling your team, you're scaling operation. Different part of scaling and growth.
Awesome. And how about you, Segun? I mean, you've seen it in action, right? Like you've seen a lot of these fintech scale.
Yeah.
How do they scale?
Yeah.
And how do they stay like on top of things?
Yeah. So the way I think about scaling is first from a go-to-market standpoint, right? Especially if you're building a product that has multiple use cases. There's the part where maybe today you're focusing on a particular category. Say, for example, at Anchor, we're serving fintechs, and then we see that there's a clear use case for, say, logistics company that have a digital platform, or say for even traditional investment houses that now want to go digital, just as an example. Then you begin to focus on those categories and basically sell directly to them, market to them. So you're basically taking the same product, but you're extending it and scaling it to a new category and making some slight adaptations and adjustments that makes it work for them and still give them a good experience. So that's one part. That's one direction to scaling. There's a second direction of product expansion, whereby we're basically saying, especially for us, where we are more horizontal, we're saying which additional products can we launch that would make sense for our customers, that would expand what they use us for. So we're going to the same customers, but we're giving them more products. And then we are hoping that the additional products would also help us attract new customers who might not appreciate some of the things that we already have today, but this new product is why they come to us. So that's another way to scale. But of course, all of this is assuming you're scaling within still the same country, right? There's also now the second part, which Achille already spoke about, which is you want to scale outside your primary market, which, for us, we operate primarily in Nigeria for now. And we are actively looking at different markets. So we have someone now who is actively looking at the different markets that we're currently exploring. And, we're doing some work to basically decide what are the things that make sense for us in this market, for us to prioritize this market. In our case, one of the core things, of course, is there has to be a regulatory environment that is open to our model, right? So that's something that is very important for us. There has to be a partner that is open to allowing us to build in partnership with them to the extent that we want to build, because for us, we're building fundamental infrastructure. So our demands might be a bit more than what a traditional fintech would demand. So they have to be that level of openness from that partner, and we have to show them, our compliance policies, our regulatory model, our, processes, and get them comfortable with that. So those are some of the things that you have to think about as you go into a new market, because the first thing is regulation and compliance. Once you sort that, then it's now about how do you adapt the product for that market ecosystem? How do you think about different categories to go to into those markets? So yeah, and there are also ways where you can get to market faster by also partnering, right? So if you say, just like you said, maybe a cellular partner with a Florida Wave, you see that even $1 billion, even multi-billion-dollar companies, in some markets where they have a use case, they have a customer, but they're not there yet, they will partner with another company that you might consider a competitor. But the problem they're trying to solve is how do they help their customer get to their own end customers in that market? And that's the rationale behind that. Because again, it's not an ego play, right? It's about how can you solve the problem for the customer. If you keep that at the back of your mind, and you think compliance and regulation in mind, then I think there's a route to scale.
Cool. Let's move on to the next question. We have a lot, but that was great. Thanks, guys. Okay, a lot of people are asking on how to get in touch. I think someone from Anchor's team should respond to those, so we might leave that until the end. Like, I mean, there's a website, and yeah, Amalara should get in touch. Amity has a great question, which is, how do you ensure the oversight of your third-party networks, especially when your supply chains are so embedded with one another? I'm guessing this is like your different services and products are so connected. Do you put resilience as a key strategy or as an afterthought, only responding when a disruption occurs? So I think that is generally like, how do you maintain all these different apps and like almost like work with them when they're embedded in your own products?
Yeah.
I think Achille, yeah.
Oh, on our side, well, redundancy for us is redundancy, right? We go with redundancy. We don't do it as an afterthought. Is within the integrity. Like from the get go, we know we need to make sure we need to keep we need to maintain resiliency. We need to be reliable, and there is always a kill switch ready to go.
Yeah.
So you're ready to drop Segun at any time, any given moment.
No, unfortunately, Segun is the only one we don't have a kill switch for. That's why I'm always with him, right? To make sure he's all right. Nothing should happen to Segun, right?
Okay. Yeah. How about you, Segun? Like, I mean, you guys also work with different companies. So like, how do you think about that?
Yeah. No, I think I think Amity asked the question, and that question is coming from someone that kind of understands the model, right? So that's actually, the big risk with the model, really. And it's one that we are very, very proactive about. So the process of oversight for our partners is a continuous process and is deeply baked into our compliance process. And what I mean by that is there's a pre-go live monitoring, there's post-go live monitoring. So you don't say, you know what, we've given all the APIs to Bujeti, they're free, they can do what they want. As part of compliance, there has to be regular audits to ensure that they're actually still doing what they claim to be doing because of how deeply linked we are. So there's a continuous process to understand what is happening within their ecosystem. There's a continuous process to basically monitor how they are communicating to customers to be sure that they're saying the right thing. So for example, one of the things you see is maybe some people are offering just a virtual account number, but they would go ahead to tell their customers that, oh, we're offering you an account that is NDIC insured, which is wrong. So you have to, if you are the provider, one of your responsibility, which is something that we take very seriously, is that we make sure that our customers are not misrepresenting what we are doing with them and what we are offering them. And that's part of our compliance function, whereby every of our program is constantly being monitored and checked to ensure that compliance is a continuous process. So yeah, for us, it's an ongoing process. It is proactive and it is continuous.
Yeah, nice. I like that. Thanks. Okay.
Yeah, just to add, like because as Segun mentioned, proactive. Like if you go afterthought or you go reactive, you will lose customer and you will lose customers' trust, and you will die because customers is what makes a company goes. So it cannot be an afterthought. You should not be reactive. It has to be reactive, even proactive.
That's awesome. Okay, that's great. We are going to do maybe 2 more questions. And that was a really good segue. Rama has a great question about trust and that being an important matter for fintechs. So guys, how did you get the trust of your very first users on your fintech?
Well, on our side, I have an interesting story. There's this one of our first customer that is so it's a French Nigerian company, right? And where I used to live in like on the outside of Paris, there is a river. So he lives on the other side of the river. I lives on the other side of the river, and in between there is an island, right? So I literally just say, okay, dude, let's meet up on the island. Let's have a coffee, and we talked. And I showed him Bujeti, and he called like right away. He called his accountant and asked, "What's the process like in Nigeria?" And the guy explained the process like, "Why are we going through this? right? And we just spoke, we came, they tested out, they loved it, and that was gone. And that's what happened for several other customers. It's really building that first initial touch with them as a person, right? And before you sell to them. So like our motto for us is nothing is about sales, 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 because that's not the biggest thing. People need to trust you. People need to know you. People need to know that whenever something happens, you did it. If anything happened, it didn't happen because you did it on purpose, right? And they know they can trust you. They know they can call you. If somebody you trust misplace your money, you will feel differently from somebody that you don't trust or you don't even know, right? So building that first trust, building that personal relationship. And today I'm kind of sad. I was telling someone I'm saddened because now I can no longer quote every single customer at Bujeti, but at one point I could, right? And I knew them and I knew the employees, but now there's too many people, so it's harder. But yeah, trust.
That's awesome. Segun, how about you? How'd you get your first few users?
Yeah, Achille said it all. It's all about relationships. Our first 3 customers were people that we know in the ecosystem, and we know that they had this issue. They were trying to build and launch stuff, and we're like, oh, this is what we've been working on. Are you going to help us test it out? So we had them in private beta for like a few months, just basically stress testing the system, working with them, getting feedback, and just trying it out before we even went public, because we were in stealth for a bit. So yeah, it's really about relationship in this business. Your first few customers ideally should be people that trust and know you, and then you can use what you've done for them to basically get referrals, or like say, okay, look at what we did with this company, and then you take it from there.
Awesome. So good. Okay, so we're gonna wrap there, but as we wrap up, we might ask one question. And in that time, I'm gonna ask everyone who's tuning in to write in one thing that you learned from this session. Like what was your biggest learning or takeaway from this session? So just write it in the chat in the comments, and I'll read those comments out. We can take some of those lessons learned. I think that there's a few like things people have written in here that are quite interesting. Just insights. And I think I might just read those out as we wait. So Jerk, maybe that's how you pronounce it, said there's no Costco of fintech yet. No one company can do all the things. The space is vast and needs collaboration. For me, that was a really big takeaway, that there's no like one company that powers everything. It's actually like a lot of companies sort of interwoven to support different products. What else do we have here? Yeah, someone said on collaboration, they like how more mature markets build startups and services with mergers and acquisitions, which is cool. And hopefully we're getting there, like a place where things are a bit more consolidated.
We might buy Hong Kong.
Oh, nice. You heard it here first. Nice. Cool. And then I think the other one is like ideally partnerships increase the value of the business and allow to grow more efficiently. You have a better product to your customers with a much faster development cycle and go-to-market time. Makes the business better and should imply, if done well, more customer value or investor value, which is great. Guys, I want to ask you both, like, what were your learnings from this? Or what were what were some of the things you took away from this session?
Personally, what I took away is like people from different side of the continent understands that partnership and working together is the only way out, and that's good to see. Because yeah, there is obviously we will say it's a jungle out there, but at least there are some people who understand that to make it out, we need to work together. That's my biggest takeaway.
Nice, I like that. Shogun?
Yeah, it's similar for me. I think we've just been able to emphasize that first, there's still a lot to be solved in fintech. There's still a lot to build in fintech, and it's not a one-man show. So We all need to work together. We need more innovators. We need more people building, and there's still a lot to be built. So for me, that's just something that stands out. And I think there's also a bit of that recognition that there's something everyone can bring to the table. I like the analogy that Achille used, that there's so many ways to get 5. So if you're trying to get 5, it's just for you to devise which path you want to go and just stick to that and do it well.
That's awesome. Nice, guys. That was fantastic. Segun, before we round up, like, what are some ways that some of the fintech founders or aspiring fintech founders here can get supported by Anchor instead of building everything themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. For us, we want to build the first point of call for anyone who is trying to build and launch a financial product. So what that means is that the compliance guidance and support that you need when you're thinking about, okay, what kind of license do I need, or what kind of compliance structure do I need to put in place for this kind of product? We are able to start by even providing the guidance for you to be able to, tell you, okay, this is how to go about it. That's one. The second part of it is, provided you have the capacity to build some form of distribution, either be it a mobile app, a web app, a USSD, whatever, any infrastructure you need on the back end, you don't have to think about it. We will be able to support you. In fact, if we don't have that API today, we will tell you who to talk to, where to go to get that API. Because for us, it is more about how do we enable more innovative products that can actually be impactful for the customers at the end of the day. So we want to see more companies get built. We want to see more companies launch, and we want to see more solutions that are actually solving real fintech problems. So we provide a full infrastructure to you in terms of APIs, in terms of things to issue cards, to issue accounts, to issue wallets, to move money around, inflow, outflow, payout, bulk disbursements, issue multi-currency accounts, offer your credit solution, offer your savings and investment products, whatever it is. You just have to reach out to us, and we have our onboarding experts. They'll jump on a call with you. We're very proactive, like we said, so we will make it happen as quickly as you reach out. And the goal is to get you to launch your product, and so you can speak very boldly like Achille is doing on this call today.
Nice. Great.
I'm suffered, Segun. Let me let me enjoy now.
You're the star boy, man. So please enjoy.
Help Segun support his fancy office lifestyle, or his bougie.
Yeah, the bougie style. But yeah, there's the one thing Segun didn't mention. They have great support. I will attest to it, because we asked, like, we on Bujeti side, we have so many things we are building and want to build, that we need more from Encore side. So then every day, almost every week, we have new things that we want, or just checking on the status of something, and they're always responsive. Everybody's there. So that's also key for us. Like, getting that support is important.
Thank you for that. Thank you. I hope the team is on this call and they're listening.
I hope they are not. so you can bring them the news yourself.
Guys, thanks so much for the session. This is great. We're going to round up there, but there's so many questions here that I feel like we should do it again soon.
Anytime, sometime next year.
Let's make it a regular thing. Thanks so much. This is great. Very, very insightful. To everyone tuning in, if you RSVP'd to the event on Luma, you'll get an email with details from the session where you can learn more about what's happening and how to work with Anchor. Otherwise, guys, thank you. We'll round up there.
Thank you, Caleb. Great hosting. Nice.
Thanks for having us. Have a nice one. Hi, everybody. Peace.
Thanks, everyone, for dialing in.
Guys. Thanks. Bye.